Hey guys, welcome back to the Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. I'm your host, Sana, and today I am so excited to introduce you guys to Maggie Hartley, a wellness and workshop leader focused on shame, shadow work, and all the things. Maggie is actually the first Growth Club member, hopefully not the last, to be on my podcast. I knew I needed her on the show because this woman has evolved so fast, so much. She has felt like a completely different person from when we first met to the woman she's become now, leading these workshops and spaces, but also just the confidence that she emanates now. Like her aura, it feels stronger, her energy is vibrant, and you just know that if somebody can shift that much energetically, they have done so much inner work on themselves to get there. So, Maggie, I am honored to dive into your world today, to share your gifts, your magic, your experience with my audience. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me and for making me cry in the first 30 seconds. It was so sweet.
Can you just share a little bit about why shadow work means so much to you and why you love to hold space for people to walk through shame? Like what do those two things mean to you?
Well, for those who don't know, shadow work is a lot like parts work, except it is dealing a lot with shame. And for those of you who also don't know what parts work is, it's basically just confronting the parts of ourselves, the feelings that come up with compassion and not identifying with them as I am angry right now, therefore I'm an angry person. That's really hard to do when you've been written off in your life and kind of put into this box of you are good or you are bad. And I think a lot of us have been put in the you are bad box, which is kind of just how shadows happen. You know, when you're a kid and you're maybe hypersensitive, which is a superpower, but you don't have parents who are great at emotional regulation, that superpower becomes dangerous and unlovable. And basically, how shadows happen is there are these parts of ourselves that society rejects. And society could be society at large, it could be our family of origin, the village that raised us, but that's seen as not good or a threat in some way. And so, even if it's just a threat to being loved, and so we hide those things away, but those things don't go away. If you're sensitive, you can pretend not to be sensitive, but that sensitivity still lives in you. It's going to come out one way or another, whether you're letting it out in healthy increments or you're suppressing it and then it blows up. It's going to come out one way or another. Wellness has been such an amazing journey, and I appreciate Growth Club for helping me on that journey because it really was a big turning point for me. But wellness has always felt really unobtainable to me, not just financially. It feels like, you know, those all white spas that cost like $500 to do all these treatments and breath work every day and journaling every day and yoga every day. And when you're struggling just to make it through the day, that's not really obtainable. So being able to focus on these little parts of myself and learning compassion for those parts, learning that those parts are protecting me. And that's a good thing. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that a part of me is standing up and saying, no, I will not be treated this way. I deserve better. Instead of looking at that, right? Instead of looking at that as a weakness or something bad, now I'm able to look at it with gratitude and compassion, which has been very instrumental because we don't realize how much negative self-talk we have until we start taking it out.
Paying attention.
Paying attention, yeah.
What was that pivotal point for you, or modality or practice that helped you to detach from the negative spiral and be able to pull yourself up to see it for what it is, accept it for what it is, and then begin shifting the narrative?
Well, so last year, I really started trying to incorporate just a little bit more wellness into my life, whether that was, you know, yoga once a week and giving myself permission to not go to yoga. So it's not as, oh, I failed.
That's a big one too.
Giving yourself permission. It's especially if you're a perfectionist, that's not
Yeah.
something that we're good at.
It's also so easy to fail or like, and then not go back at all because, like, if I'm not consistent with it, then I'm not worthy of having this thing in my life. And it's like, whose voices are all these that we're like allowing into our minds to dictate what's right and wrong and what is acceptable and not acceptable? And like, it's so much programming and conditioning that can be so loud. But yeah,
Yeah.
continue with this lecture that you went to.
No, you're right, because it is conditioning, and those voices are usually our parents,
Mm-hmm.
society, teachers, kids on the playground, all these things that we think we let roll off our back didn't. They sunk in and they dug their claws in deep. Yeah, I think part of wellness, the first part of wellness, isn't succeeding, it's undoing a lot of the damage and trauma that's been done to us. So I went to a shadow work workshop, which is a mouthful, but very interesting. So there's this neurobiologist that came up with these terms, primitives and ambassadors. And so there's the primitive part of our brain and the ambassador part of the brain. And you can kind of guess what their purposes are. The primitives are very reactionary. They don't really think things through. It's just very cause and effect. We're not thinking, oh, is this socially acceptable? Oh, how is my tone here? It's just kind of like very defensive and protective, which, we all have experience with, even if it's just in arguments. It's very hard to remember it's us against the problem instead of us against each other. And those are the primitives. They're trying to protect you. And then the ambassadors are more like, well, this person said this thing, but maybe it was in the heat of the moment. And they're kind of calming things down and taking a moment before reacting. They're very much less reactive, which is why they're the ambassadors. And I used to really hate my primitives. I really judged them.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to parts work, I really identified with them. For instance, I feel I grew up in LA, and LA is the worst traffic wise, and people drive like complete jerks. Like they don't get out of the way of ambulances, which is my biggest pet peeve. Like unless you're the one who's gonna operate on who's in the ambulance, like get out of the way.
Just so oblivious, honestly. Like, I think
Yeah.
everyone's in their own bubble, not paying attention to what's going on around them, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, oopsies. Like,
Yeah, as it goes by. Oh, was there an ambulance? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want to call it road rage because I'm not, with a crowbar throwing it at people, but let's say road activation or road triggering because I'm definitely activated. I judged myself for that for the longest time. I grew up in an angry household and feeling anger never felt
mm,
safe, So especially feeling anger for something as trivial as somebody cutting me off, really judging myself for that and getting down on myself for that and identifying as like, oh, well, I'm just an angry person. I can't control my anger. I'm just an angry monster who's unlovable. And, here's the proof,
mm,
and just spirals from there. And being able to take a step back and really validate that anger is there to protect me. Somebody came into my space and maybe dangerously and maybe put my life or someone else's life in danger. And that's not okay. And let's not forget, without anger, we wouldn't have the civil rights movement. We wouldn't have the suffragettes. We wouldn't have change. Anger comes from a place of
no.
this isn't right. And to be able to see that instead of judging that and have compassion for that instead of anger at the anger was
Which
really a
isn't
turning
helpful,
point
that
for
you're just
me.
perpetuating a cycle.
Exactly. And a cycle of self abuse because I'm
Yeah.
treating myself like other people treated me, and that wasn't okay when they did it, and it's not okay when I do it.
Oof. Yes. And is it like a reparenting thing that
Hmm.
anchors you into that? Because, like, I know for a lot of people where it's, well, yeah, like, this is just how I am. This is just how I was treated. So this is just what I'm destined to experience in my life. But you're truly pausing and breaking that cycle and saying no more. And I get to choose how I see myself and how, therefore, others treat me.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that was also a big turning point was realizing that those internal voices weren't right. They weren't me
Mm,
talking. They were my parents. They were my childhood. They were all these other voices. But my voice was saying, you don't get to treat me this way. It was just so soft and quiet and hidden in a back corner somewhere. The other voices were just so much more present and prevalent. Like they were just everywhere and
Yeah.
louder. It really takes
And
me
then what
back to,
happens on the journey? Like, do those voices get quieter and then does the other voice get louder for you? Like, what's going on in your mental space through this work?
yeah. So it reminds me of this Native American story. I'm not sure what to call it, allegory, where this grandfather is talking to the grandchildren about there are these two wolves inside of us, and one wolf is kindness and love and generosity and empathy and laughter and all of these good things. And then the other wolf is jealousy and anger and pettiness and being small and selfishness and all of these quote unquote bad things. And they're just in this epic eternal battle within us. And one of the grandchildren asks, but which one will win? And he says, whichever one you feed. I think we're all feeding wolves that we don't realize we're feeding, and they just get louder and stronger. And once you recognize that, you can start feeding the other wolf, and that wolf then gets stronger and the other one gets weaker. One thing I've really worked on is self-talk, because that self-talk wolf was rabid and loud and like not healthy at all. And so I started feeding the good self-talk wolf, the nice self-talk. So like even if I would make a minor mistake, like I would drop something or spill something, I'd very jokingly, not meaning this, be like, oh God, you dumb bitch. Like, oh, that was so
As
silly.
we
Like,
all
why would
do.
I do that?
Yeah.
Right. But I realized even jokingly calling myself a dumb bitch, weirdly enough, not going to
It's
help
like,
with,
it's like, why? Like, why are we like, that's a pattern that you're recognizing. And it's like, well, I don't need to be so mean to myself.
right. Even like lightheartedly, even as a joke, I can.
Yeah.
So now, even if I do something really annoying that I'm really mad at, like get a stupid parking ticket or something like that, that's easily avoidable, I just call myself a silly Billy. Well, that was a very silly Billy thing to
Oh,
do.
wow. That rewrite and reframe is so cute. I'm going
And
to take
so
that.
important. Yeah. Like we don't
It
realize
is so
how
important. Yeah.
many voices we have like that in our heads until we start to like dismantle them and confront them and be like, oh, wait, I'm doing this every day or multiple times a day or however often it is. It's like shocking.
Mm-hmm. So true. And it piles up. Like we may not think that it's that big of a deal. And we're like, oh, it's like just a little thing here, just a little thing there. But I know for me, one day that little pile ended up becoming so massive that I just tripped and fell. And I realized that I had absolutely no love for myself. And I'm
Mm,
asking for more love from my husband and my family and my friends. And I'm like trying to grasp for more love from anyone and everyone outside of me, complaining, arguing, fighting, screaming, shouting for more love. And everyone's like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, I'm giving everything I can, but I wasn't able to receive it because I had no self love.
mm-hmm.
And it was that pivotal moment for me where I was like, wow, all of these little things that I've been saying to myself have been disconnecting me from my own source of internal love and my own connection to love. So, like, what was that for you? Like, what was that pivotal moment where it was, or did you, or was it just like slowly over time because you've been doing the inner work and like you realized these things subtly, or was it a big moment?
I think probably a little bit of both. First off, I love your metaphor of it just builds and builds and builds and then you trip over it. And
Yeah,
I think
that's my
that's
rock
so
bottom.
literally. But rock bottom reminds me of like, I don't know if you're a Thich Nhat Hanh fan, but he said, no mud, no lotus. So without the rock
Yeah.
bottom, you wouldn't have been able to find all this growth and sunshine and beauty within yourself, let alone within the
Yeah,
world.
so true.
Yeah. So I hate to say this, but congratulations on hitting rock bottom.
No, I know, and I completely agree. Where it's like it's sad, and I would never wish it upon anyone else because it is a really dark, scary moment, and it feels very isolating and alone when you're first in it. But also for all the listeners, I really want you to know that like if you're in it now, or if you're scared that you may be in it one day, I truly believe that that is the initiation to the path to becoming sovereign. And it's like I
Mm,
don't know if every single person needs to go through it, but I do know that the people that I look up to and admire the most are people who have experienced dark nights of the soul when they felt completely lost. And I don't think you have an excuse to go on a self-discovery journey or a personal growth journey if you don't feel completely lost at some point.
Yeah, I fully
So it's
agree
not
with
that I
that.
wish it on others, but also like if you're in it, then I do believe like you're chosen to rise from the ashes and become a leader and show the world that there is meaning and purpose through all of that pain and suffering that you're experiencing in this moment so that you can find the light, walk towards it until you finally don't have that cloud over you anymore. And then I believe it's your civic duty or your sacred duty or whatever you want to call it to share your story and your testimony and become that torch and that light for others, which now you're doing, Maggie, like so beautifully. You're stepping into this role of being that torch, that light for others who are in the darkness. So how does it feel stepping into this new era for you?
It feels weird. And like anything new, it feels weird. It feels great. Imposter syndrome is also coming up. Like I feel like we view success as a destination and we win and like, we win the game and get carried off the field and like that's it. And you don't feel sad at the end of the day being like, oh wow, that was such a great high and now I'm coming down from that. And it's just kind of very, I look at everything as like a zero sum, you're either there or you're not.
Mm.
And so being able to acknowledge that I'm there, but also a little reluctant to be there, but also excited to be there. And like your beautiful, we did this TED Talk workshop that Sana and Carly led yesterday, which was very amazing. Carly said, basically, what makes you the best person to have this message? And I think I spent so much of my life trying to fit me into the message instead of just finding what message I was unique in being able to like my unique message that I could share, that only I could share. So yeah, coming into that I think was really powerful. And to answer your
Wow.
previous question of like what was the turning point, because I think it kind of ties into this. Last year was really dark for me. Last year was probably one of, if not my rock bottom. The studio I was working at shut down all of a sudden. We got a week notice. I was
Wow.
not doing well financially. I was kind of just starting to invest more into my mental health. I started doing poetry. I started doing pottery. Yeah, I was really like on an upward spiral because I think we're all spiraling up and down or like a wave, whatever metaphor you want to
Yeah,
use. There's always the
I
ups and
agree with the
downs.
spiral. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like just starting to spiral up after COVID depression and all of that stuff, and then the rug was pulled out from under me, and it was really, I kind of thought a sink or swim moment for me. It also took me a while in that last year to realize that my whole life plan was just to get as far as I could before I messed it up and then unalive myself. That was my life plan, which is why I didn't go to college. I took classes at, a community college to keep from brain rot, but I was like, why build a career? Why do anything but just be gluttonous, enjoy life as much as I can before I burn it all down and have to leave. And so those
Yeah.
thoughts started to come in of maybe this is the time. Maybe I've now messed up my life so much that this is my end. And there was a piece of me that wanted to fight. That little wolf that had not been fed for so long was still like, barking very quietly in the corner. And I started thinking, well, why not feed that wolf? Why not see I've seen what happens when I feed the other wolf. I've seen what happens when I give up. Why not see how far I can go? Like a hike that is
Wow.
maybe outside of your skill set, instead of having a set of like, okay, I'm going to make it to mile 3 and then turn around, like see how far you can go. And then honestly, I find when I do that, when I give myself permission to turn around whenever I need to, I find that's when I complete the hike. That's when I push further than I thought I could, because it really is a mental limitation of, oh, I think I can only do this. Like if you had told
Yep.
me last year I would be leading workshops on wellness of all things, absolutely not. I'd be like, no way, that's not me. maybe like
Wow.
improv or, something, but not wellness. And it just goes to show you that when you give yourself permission to try and not have the parameters of I can only do this and I can only do that, you can do a lot more than you thought you could.
First of all, thank you so much for your honesty, your vulnerability, and for sharing that story. It's very resonant with things in my past as well when it came to what's the point? What am I here for? Like, why even be here? Would you say that the antidote to those thoughts and feelings is to have a purpose? And by purpose, I don't mean a career or a job, but what I mean is it sounds like in that moment, a part of you chose to make yourself the purpose. Like
Mm.
you had a focus or a direction, which was to heal, to shift the narrative, and to try a different way of being. So you had like direction and focus to get you out of the suicidal ideation. Do you think that, I mean, I'm sure there's many things that can help with that, but like I know for me it was that as well, where it was like, well, I'm going to make this my purpose, which was for me just being a really big rebel and just living my life to the fullest and just like finally saying no to trying to make my parents happy and get their approval and just being like, well,
Yeah.
I choose to live my life for me. And I became
Hmm.
my purpose. Like my joy became my purpose.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way of I became my purpose. Because I think at the beginning I was not my purpose. My purpose, I mean,
Mm,
I think in a lot of ways I was, but I wasn't fully on board with that quite yet at the beginning. I think my
yeah.
purpose at the beginning was just forward. Just keep moving forward. That was all I could focus on, because even forward was so hard. I was used to just still and stuck,
Yeah.
still by
Hmm.
choice and stuck not by choice. And so the only thing I could manage at that time was just putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes that one foot in front of the other was just brushing my teeth and washing my face before 4 p.m. or just that day in general. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was getting to yoga class. And sometimes it was getting ready for yoga class, but the whole time giving myself permission that when I'm ready, I don't have to go. And if I go, I don't have to go in. And if I go in, I could just do child pose the whole time. And sometimes forward was like, let's see what I can do in yoga, like let's see like physically what I can do. I think that really helped bring up confidence
Hmm.
because I could see the results more. And I had yoga teachers being like, "Can you feel the results? You're doing so much better. Like you're not struggling at this." They really like you and introducing me and saying all this work I had done. I remember the first time you said that to me and I was like, "Wait, what? Other people can see that? I can barely see that." And sometimes I can't even see that. I just keep going forward at the hopes that it's happening.
Strides.
I'm so bad with compliments.
You don't
But
need
yeah,
to be good at
strides.
them. You can
Yeah,
just,
I'm getting better at them. Yeah, so it's important to
and I,
have people remind you of how well you're doing and how much you're changing.
and speaking of that, there's something that you say often that has now become like the Maggie tagline that I love so much is trauma is what happens in isolation,
Mm.
but healing is what happens in community. So can you dive a little bit what community means to you and how it has helped you? And I know you touched on it a little bit here with like the yoga instructor reflecting that back to you and like me or like others reflecting it back to you, but like what do you do if you're so used to the isolation and the solitude or like that's your safe space, especially if you're like an introverted person? How can you open your heart up when it's been closed for so long? Usually it happens when people have been giving too much, finally stop giving and pour into themselves, and they're finally at this place of like stability of, oh, I'm like happy here, and now they're too scared to go back, so they avoid opening themselves up to
Hmm.
anyone. How would you walk someone through that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I walked through that journey. I was a parentalized child, I was responsible for my parents' emotions and emotional expressions, very isolated. I mean, my parents didn't realize that they had to plan play dates for their child. So in all of
Mm,
elementary school, like the full 5, 6 years, I guess, including kindergarten, I had 2 or 3 play dates. So I was isolated at a
Damn,
very
that's
early age.
crazy.
Yeah. Not fun. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Yeah. So my safe space is taking care of myself. When I fall into a depression, I isolate, partially because that's the only way I know how to self-care, and partially because I don't want to bring down my loved ones. I don't want to be Debbie Downer who, every couple of months is just saying, oh, I'm in this really bad depression. So yeah, it is really hard to go from isolation to community. I was really lucky to have a best friend since like 7th grade. I could really trust her. And she was actually the growth person of the two of us. She's the one that was always pushing to be better and like, oh, I'm reading this self-help book and I'm reading this and I'm doing that and I'm doing this program. And I'd be like at home, like eating because I was bored, not even because I was hungry, and haven't left the house in 3 days. And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that not only feel safe, but that you admire. Because when they're their best self, we were kind of talking about this before, when they're their best self, you automatically rise to the occasion, rise to your best self. Even if your best self looks completely different from their best self, like you can't help but rise to the occasion as best you can in your circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that I did need more community, because I did have this one person and that was great. I think most of us need more than one person to receive love from to feel whole. And especially like life being what it is, not everyone can be there for you all the time. Brene Brown has this great thing of when she comes home or her husband comes home, they have like a little meeting of the minds to say, okay, what percentage is your battery at and what percentage is your battery at? Because if somebody's at 80, somebody's at 20, 80% is making dinner, 20% is taking a bath. You know what I mean? And then sometimes you're both at 20 and it's just, okay, take out and every man for himself. Good luck. I hope you feel better. I'm going to go take care of me. You're going to take care of you. Let me know if we
Yeah.
need to take care of each other, like we can figure something out. So yeah, not
I love
every,
that.
somebody has a baby or moves or whatever, they can't always be there. So you need a bunch of community. And so I started looking for community. I started looking for places like Good Active, which led me to Growth Club, which also led me to Super Bloom. And I've been joining all of these community organizations that are wellness based. And I'm meeting all of these amazing people. Like I met Steph at one of your dinners and she was in my pod and we like instantly connected. And now we talk like every day. And she's been a great part of my community because she's smart and emotionally mature and she can laugh at anything. Like we'll be talking about dark stuff and we'll be laughing about it, which is so important to me.
Laughter is medicine.
It really is. And just a good reminder that even in the heavy stuff, even in the darkness, light can still peek its way through.
And we're complex humans. I think what I struggled with for a long time was not allowing myself to laugh or feel joy when I was depressed or when I was
Mm,
grieving or when I was sad. Because I was like, well, then I'm abandoning my sadness when no, like we can hold the duality of multiple emotions at the same time. And when I allowed myself to do that for the first time, where I was like heartbroken, shattered, and I had a beautiful experience or like witnessed joy at the park, just people watching and laughed and let myself laugh in that moment while simultaneously still feeling the sadness. And like, it just expanded me. I was like,
mm-hmm.
whoa, we can feel a lot at the same time and it's all welcome and it's all okay. You don't need to abandon joy because you're sad and you don't need to like abandon sad because you're supposed to be love and light and happy all the time either.
Oh, that's such an interesting way of putting it. Yeah. Because I feel like we cling to the darkness for different I mean, obviously all of us do, but I think you and I cling to the darkness, the sadness for different
Yeah.
reasons. And I love like that was so just poignant and self-aware and totally what I'd expect out of you. But for me,
Sweet. I'm
well,
also
it's
not
true.
good with compliments.
Why is this what we do when we're not, we become little squirrels, bearing our
Maybe
compliments
that's what should
like
be your
nuts?
thing. Like,
No compliments. But yeah, so I cling to the darkness, not because I'm afraid of abandoning it. One, because it feels safe, it's familiar, it's one I know. It's safer. It's safer to not have hope and then be disappointed, you know? It's safer to just be in the
ooh,
mud than get up and fall back down in the mud and get up and fall back down in the mud. That's like exhausting. So
Yeah.
it's easier to just stay there.
I think that's what it means to have a fear of success, not really a fear
Mm.
of failure, where it's like, also, like, I don't know if you felt this, but I do, where it's like, what if it does work out and then I actually have to be this different version of myself? And like that unfamiliarity of who that version of me is makes me self-sabotage the things that I'm supposed to do or should do or whatever in order to get ahead in my career or have the difficult conversations in my relationships or show up for myself to work out more consistently and drink more water and do the things that like I know are going to get me to the version of myself, my higher self that I like visualize and imagine. But then also I'm like, but then I have to like leave this version of me
Mm.
to get to her. And I guess that goes back to me being all about like the abandonment. And it's like, that's one of my core wounds of I was abandoned as a child and neglected and all the things. So it's like, that's one of my things where it's like, I'm never going to abandon any parts of me and I'm going to
Mm.
bring them all up with me along the journey. But then at some point it gets really, really heavy and I have to like make that difficult choice of what is no longer mine to carry because I've healed this, I've milked the lessons, I've gotten everything I needed out of this wound. And it's okay to let that version of me go and let those stories go where I'm like the victim and I went through this and that. So I don't know, like how's your integration process like when it comes to parts work?
Well, I guess I want to answer your question with a question, which is, are you letting those parts go or have those parts just learned a better, healthier way of
Hmm.
being? Like, for example,
Yeah.
one of my parts, which is very similar to anxiety, is to replay every conversation, every interaction I've ever had, just randomly, and every conversation I will have, like all of the things, something from 20 years ago just pops up. And this kind of part of like shadow work and parts work was realizing, well, okay, it's not just popping up an embarrassing, painful, cringeworthy memory to make me feel bad. It's doing that so I don't do that again. It's bringing it up
Hmm.
so I learn from my mistakes. And so instead of just shutting that part down and being like, no, I don't need that anymore, I'd say when it brought up a memory that was particularly cringeworthy and embarrassing and like, oh God, I want to die just thinking about it, I'd say, oh wow, thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I've processed that probably 1,000 times, if not more. I think I'm good. I think I've processed that. I think I've learned the lesson and now we can
Mm.
let that go. But that part, that protective part is still there. It's just now more selective about which stories it brings up and why.
I love that so much. I think it gives me more peace in my body hearing it from that perspective. I think there's this thing, and I want to touch on the toxic side of the wellness industry too. That's new me, new era, old me, bye bye mentality. And I think that's where I was probably getting it from. But what you shared is more holistic wellness and not this linear path that's more of that whole cycle of like, well, old parts are still going to come up and you can sit with them and not feel like you're spiraling back to the bottom and not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just that awareness. And it doesn't mean that you're failing and you're not growing and you're not evolving. It's just creating that pause in between reacting and just having that awareness and be like, thank you. But I think I'm good here. You can
Yeah,
still
because
come with me. I'm not going to leave you and abandon you.
yeah, yeah, because there are no
Yeah.
bad parts. I like to think of it
Yeah.
as I'm driving a bus and there are all these parts and kids in me. I think we've all gotten stuck at certain ages. I have an eight-year old, I have a 15-year-old, I have a 21-year-old, all based off of like big things that happened at that time.
Yeah.
And like the middle schooler comes out when I'm insecure and wondering like, oh, are people gonna like me? And then the middle schooler is like, oh, you need me? I'm here for that. um, but I see it as like I'm driving a bus, and sometimes a kid grabs the wheel, sometimes an emotion grabs the wheel, sometimes anger grabs the wheel. But they're all parts of me, and they're all in the bus, and we're all working together. We're all working to get to this destination. And I think part of my wellness journey has being me driving the bus more and not the
Mm.
parts, not the scared, not the insecure, not the 8-year-old, not the 15-year-old, me driving the bus, but also not ignoring them and knowing that when they're reaching for the wheel, it's because there's a need not being met. And me
Mm.
as the mom, as the bus driver, it's my job to see those needs and to be there for that and help it if I can, listen to it if I can. I was on a road trip in March, and this feeling of dread just came out, like the pit in your stomach type dread, someone sitting on your chest, like this could lead to a panic attack dread, and I didn't know where it was coming from. And so I started asking the parts like a good mommy does. I started asking,
Mm.
hey, what's going on? Who's feeling what? Like I feel it. It's in there somewhere. Like what's going on, Bubba? I did like an audio journal of it, like an audio diary. I hit the
The
like
voice
voice
note, I mean,
recorder.
or
Yeah.
the memo. Yeah.
Yes, memo. Thank you. And I did that, and I re-listened to it a while later, and for the first like 5 minutes, it was just me asking questions, and nobody was answering me, which doesn't usually happen. Usually somebody answers and is like, "Oh, I'm scared. I'm mad. I'm this. I'm that. There's this need that's not being met. I need this kind of reassurance." Like usually I get an answer. I was not getting an answer. And so I started to get flustered and like panicked of like, how can I help you if I don't know what's wrong? And so then I just went into, okay, okay, you don't have to tell me what's wrong, but I'm here. I am here for you. Regardless of what's wrong, Mama's not going anywhere. Mama's right here. You're not in this alone. You feel whatever you need to feel. I'm right here. And I just kept saying, I'm here. I'm here over and over again.
Mhm.
And of course, I started sobbing. I was like, I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm here. That's what that piece needed. It just needed someone to be
That
there. It didn't need me to problem solve. It didn't need me to do anything, but just be there and hold it.
holy shit, Maggie. That is presence. That is what it truly means to self-parent. And I think like that alone is just going to heal the fucking world. And a lot of us get so caught up in needing the answer, needing to fix it,
Hmm.
needing to get back to good. So many times it's like, thank you for sharing that. Like, you don't always need to have the why, but you can still have the love.
Yeah. And I do
That's so
also
healing.
want to point out, like, this was not an enjoyable process for me in any
Yeah,
way, shape, or form. Like it's a great
of
story, and
course.
I'm so glad I got to the other side, and it was really important work. But like at the 20-minute mark, I was like, I don't want to be, I don't want to hold you. I want to smoke weed and forget and numb out and not feel the things and like go back to
Yeah.
my life. I don't want to sit in this. This is so unpleasant. And I think
Mm.
there's this misconception of wellness feels good. Not usually.
No.
It's like when you're working out, like you could be holding 200 pounds and you're being so strong, but it hurts and you're sweating and just
Yeah.
waiting for it to end. And
Mhm.
people think like being strong and having wellness, it's all this like pretty tied up in a bow kind of thing. And it's, you're in the trenches. It's
No,
gnarly.
exactly. And this is exactly why we need more teachers like you who understand the fullness of the experience. What you just said too, where it's like, yeah, you don't think I wanted to go and like reach for my coping mechanisms and not be with it, but that's what it means to be a leader, where it's like what we were saying earlier, you don't need to be holding space for others in order to be a leader. That is what it means to be a leader, where in that moment, instead of going and repeating cycles and reaching for the things that are going to keep you avoiding the deeper work, you choose to sit with it and be with it and understand that the discomfort and the uncomfortable feelings and the darkness is all just a moment. And there is
Mm,
always going to be light on the other side if you commit, devote, and be with all your parts.
yeah.
Maggie, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
It reminds me of a saying I learned last year that's really been a mantra that stuck with me and changed me. Because when it's dark, I always turn to this. It'll all be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
It's not the end. Oof,
It's not the end.
I love that. Well, how can my audience find you? How can they work with you? What do you have going on in your world?
So yeah, I'm just starting this journey. I was in my wellness receiving stage last year, and now I'm in my wellness giving stage because I love teaching. I think when you find your specific voice, you'll find there's an opening for that, like a gap that needs to be filled. And
Oof.
I'm finding my gap. So I am leading workshops about shadow work and shame. I am looking into touring schools, maybe. So if people want to do anything one-on-one, if they are part of an organization and want to host a workshop, if they work for a school or recovery center, anything where they think this would be relevant, they can reach me at my email.
I'll put it in the show notes below.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's just my
Yeah.
initials, M Hartley, Hartley 495 at Gmail. I'm working on making an Instagram for this. I'm not a social media person, so this will be very interesting to see how I can be true to myself, but also advertise myself and be a presence online. And yeah,
The
that's where I'm at
beautiful
right now.
part about embodying the work that you're here to share with the world is that you just share your wisdom and you just share your story and you just keep showing up authentically. And the people that are meant to find you and they feel your energy and they reach out. Like that's how I've gotten all my one-on-one clients is literally just maybe I'll like link like my website or a calendar, but I'm really just sharing whatever I'm feeling in the moment that needs to be shared. And
Mm.
I think that there's a difference between when you are a coach or a healer or a teacher for the purpose of building a business versus you're doing it because you literally can't do anything else. It's a calling that you have from within, and it's like being birthed and driven through just your gut, your intuition. You can't stop it even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's really not like a choice, it's a calling, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can feel that so deeply from you. And I can't wait to consume so much more of you and your magic. And I am going to be the biggest fan ever. I love you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sana. You know I freaking adore you, man. You're the best.
You're the best. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.